Hi, everyone. Welcome to speakABLE or speakABLE, however you like. My name is Surabhi Rajaram, and I currently serve as chair for the Services for Students with Disabilities Advisory Board. And this event today is actually one in a series of events to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Services for Students with Disabilities. So, for those of you who may not know, Services for Students with Disabilities at this university exists to promote the success of students. And they do that by providing academic accommodations, financial support, academic coaching, etc. And the body of students that SSD serves is about 2,000 with a projected 4,500. And what that tells us is that we're not getting enough reach. And so the purpose of this event today is to raise that awareness, especially within the student communities, because students are what the office serves. And when we think of disability, we may think of the more visible disabilities, but really the office serves a really wide range of disabilities, and this may include mental disabilities like depression, or learning disabilities like ADHD, even chronic illness, sensory impairments, and mobility impairments, even temporary disabilities. So if you break a leg, you know who to come to. So as the Student Advisory Board, in addition to working on the goals of the office, we also work to promote student environment or campus environment. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker. Jean Lodge has been with the Student Advisory Board actually for 2 years now. She is incredibly sweet and incredibly quiet, but we're so excited to hear her talk today. And yeah, she's let me do her introduction. She's a PhD in chemistry, and she likes long walks on the beach and backpacking. So, boys, if you want to date her, she's really great.
Okay. So I'm here today because I want to share my story in an effort to prevent what happened to me from happening to others. I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota. That's what this picture was taken from, and that's where my story begins. I was a competitive alpine ski racer with Team Duluth. I was addicted to the speed and adrenaline rush that came with it. As individuals, we had pressure to qualify for bigger, more competitive races. When I tried to qualify for the Junior Olympics, that's where I experienced my first significant hit on the head. The following years, I had additional mild impacts. However, nobody advised me against skiing. I often went to the doctor after the first couple injuries, but I was always told that I would be better within 2 weeks. And I was also told that being a child, I would recover quickly from a brain injury. What we know now is that multiple concussions can have cumulative and long-lasting life changes. And younger people are at an increased risk with TBIs, including the severity and the prolonged recovery from them. However, this information came out too late for me. After a mild brain injury on December 31st, 2004, I didn't recover after 2 weeks. I became extremely depressed. My grades went from 3.8 to 2.7. I was failing English, basically in less than 6 weeks. And I really didn't know why at this point. After many doctors, without the understanding to help me, I finally met one who could interpret the results of a neuropsychological exam. He took me out of school for the remainder of my junior year. I really don't remember much about this time. It's called post-concussion syndrome. I was basically sleeping for a month or two. So I returned back to high school my senior year, and I had a lot of accommodations that helped me graduate eventually. but it was basically the cognitive behavioral therapy that really allowed me to get to where I am today. In high school and early on, it wasn't easy to face my peers. My grades went back up to where they were, mainly because of my accommodations. But then my friends or acquaintances would start rumors that I was faking my injury, which I attribute mainly because I had no physical visible injury. I graduated from my undergraduate studies after a lot of help from the College of St. Scholastica. I really had to learn in a rough way how to advocate for myself at American University, where I spent 3 years of my undergrad studies. Let's just say that St. Scholastica once again instilled my confidence in humanity, that there were people and communities willing to help others succeed rather than constantly compete with each other. And I have experienced a similar pleasant and supportive group at the University of Michigan. The one hurdle that cognitive behavioral therapy hasn't been able to help me much with, and occurs on a daily basis, is the lack of understanding from others. Dr. Holmes, in this book that's basically close to my Bible, is the head injured college student. And he put many issues in perspective for me, and I have included an insert here. So specifically within the college setting, the student is likely to face a wall of misunderstanding from those around him or her. The misunderstandings are significantly worsened because I don't have any clear physical impairments. I can walk perfectly, I can usually speak clearly, I can seem alert and aware, I have good coordination, and I don't have scars at all. So it seems really incomprehensible for many people that I have poor planning, fatigue. In my case, I have slow processing and difficulty concentrating, and that's attributed to a brain problem. And this has only caused more depression and frustration for me because I've had issues with advising. I've been referred to far too many psychologists in my short lifespan who can't quite put my mental problems together with my brain problems. The assumption that I'm suffering from a psychological problem carries the assumption that discussing these problems will help alleviate them. This is a false assumption because as counseling has been beneficial for me, it is only helpful if the brain injury is taken into account. So I've had at least 2 of the dozen psychologists I've met who have actually been helpful. And from their assistance, I've been able to establish basically a support system for myself, and an effort to not have to search for professionals who can help me out every single time I move around to different places. I've developed a support system that works the best for me. And in moving to Michigan, I brought Penny with me. She was a dog I rescued before I had my injury, and she's basically been my lifeline. I knew I would need backup support should she be unable to be there. She's now 13 years old. So once I moved to Michigan, I looked for a companion who could go with me everywhere and sort of act as my visible scar. Unfortunately, I was accepted by a startup organization which really didn't have the experience or expertise to help me prepare as a service dog handler. So Teddy was also less than 2 years old when he passed his public access exam and started work, and so he was far too young. I saw value in having him by my side, but after a mild incident with a mailman, I didn't want to risk him giving service dogs a bad image. So I ultimately had to fire him. I have learned to be a better dog handler, and I really enjoy it, so I hope to have Teddy or some other dog working with me soon. And I highly encourage people not to settle with their disability and seek a better life through resources until they find one that works. So returning back to my effort to prevent what happened to me happening to others, many states since 2010 have adopted this concussion law for high school sports. This is a big step to helping prevent permanent brain damage to athletes. Although I was a skier for my high school, I was never injured in a high school event. It was the races sponsored by other organizations, such as the Federation of International Skiing and USSA, where I was injured. And in those races, it led to my disability. So work still needs to be done on different levels to educate and to make people more aware of the risks of these sports. I would have benefited greatly from someone telling me that enough was enough, and understanding that just because the damage isn't visible, there isn't potentially physical injury. So thank you.
All right, so next up we have Rohit Kapoor. He is a senior in the Ross School of Business studying finance, so he's probably really, really smart. He goes by row, row your boat, and stop, drop, and row. And FIFA is his go-to relaxer. So give it up.
That works perfect. Can everyone hear me? It's not on. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Cool. All right, so thank you for that introduction. The actor Mike Myers once said, "If I went by all the rejection I've had in my life, I should have given up a long time ago." These words resonate with me not only in the sense of getting rejected from the general public and members of the opposite sex, but from potential future employers as well. Over the past year, I've been searching for employment. Soon to be graduating from Ross, one of the top business schools in the country, you may be thinking to yourself, he shouldn't have any trouble finding employment. However, 22 interviews later, rejection begins to take a toll on one's confidence. After all these rejections, I began reaching the conclusion that discrimination could be playing a factor in the interview and hiring process. An example or display of such judgment took place during my interview with General Motors. In between questions that were relevant to the position, the interviewer made reference that I had been the only person in a wheelchair he had ever interviewed in the last 15 years. And I was also asked how I get around, which made me uncomfortable, for which I responded, in my wheelchair. These comments shook my confidence and left me wondering whether I had a shot at the position at all. The more I thought about it, I thought to myself, is this a company that doesn't have much experience with disabilities, impairments, or other differences? Or is it simply a case of individual ignorance that is representing the corporation? Another example was during a career fair that happened right here on campus. I approached a company of interest and began listening to their representatives speak and inquire about the products the company offers and the positions that they were looking to fill. Soon after, I was told, "You don't look like a programmer, so it's none of your concern." I found this interesting due to the fact that I'm Indian and programming is a common career path. So I asked myself, what does a programmer look like? Coming from one of the greatest universities and having the merit to compete with other candidates on equal playing field had me think, what's wrong with me? Oftentimes, interviewers have predispositions about the disabled and would rather hire someone they wouldn't have to accommodate. And lastly, I wanted to walk you through an example that happened to me last summer on a job and an internship. This was a typical 10-week internship program for Target headquarters in Minneapolis. Prior to accepting the internship, my limitations, needs, and accommodations were all explained. At the end of 8 weeks, I was emailed a sudden message to meet with a mentor as well as my manager. To my surprise, it was brought to my attention that it was observed that I was not taking notes or asking enough questions. Therefore, I did not appear to be interested. I explained that it is difficult for me to take notes. However, upon returning to my desk, I write notes, as well as any questions I may have or items I did not understand. and when needed, address them either with my team, mentor, or manager. We then had a second meeting between us, which included human resources. Upon meeting, we came to the conclusion that there was a miscommunication and should be more open with one another moving forward. At least I thought we had an understanding. 2 weeks later, upon my exit evaluation at the end of 10 weeks, it was mentioned again, word for word, but this time in writing, that I could not keep up, and the task took me longer than the rest of the team. Therefore, it was felt that I would not be a good fit for the position, the only one of our 4-person team that did not get an offer. It was very clear to me at this point that this was discrimination. The University of Michigan emphasizes diversity, but I feel the university could excel more at teaching us how to deal with the world that isn't as open to diversity as we would hope. This is where I believe the university could be more helpful by getting more involved and making more resources available for students, preparing us for situations that people with limitations may encounter that an able-bodied person would not have to deal with. For example, SSD has done a good job collaborating with progressive organizations such as the Lyme Connect program, a nonprofit organization that works closely with many major corporations such as Google, IBM, etc., which helps coach students with disabilities, both visual or hidden, to not be ashamed of their hardships, but embrace these hardships as a different way of thinking. In addition, Lyme Connect also prepares students with disabilities with the interview process, internships, and eventually employment. I believe such progressive organizations are key to student success in dealing with a world that isn't as welcoming as U of M. Therefore, if the university were to invest in these collaborations, it could be of great assistance to disabled students. The disabled community by providing them with abilities and the tools to change their future employer's perception. As we all know, interviewing is all about perception and ensuring that employer that you will be able to get the job done. Thank you.
Oh no, I didn't write a speech.
You're up next. Is this on? Okay. So also I want to say that if anybody has any questions at any time for these speakers, please feel free to ask them. Okay, so next up we have Drew Claiborne. He is currently a sophomore in LS&A, and he's studying bioinformatics. And so Drew is totally into sports, except for baseball. He's totally into movies, except for scary ones. And he's totally into music, except for country. So please give it up for Drew.
That good? Yeah. Yeah. Might need to come from the other side. Check, check. Check one. All right. All right. All right. Well, my name's Drew Claiborne. Uh, just to give a little background of me, I had an accident 4 years ago today, actually. Before my accident, I played football, basketball. I was in the marching band, and I would show up and numerous other activities around school, including ultimate frisbee, jazz band, and all this, many other activities. And uh, when my accident happened, I was practicing for a musical, and I was practicing a backflip. And after school one day, me and a couple of my buddies that were in the musical were waiting at my sister's locker, and we decided to do some backflips. And I did a backflip and broke my neck, and am now paralyzed from the shoulders down. And after my accident, I continued to do the marching band and was able to continue with that for the next 2 years. And we won state the next 2 years and went to nationals and made semis as well. And that was fun. And then coming to Michigan, though, my first year, my first semester, I was commuting because nursing and whatnot, it wouldn't let me stay in the dorms because I wouldn't have enough support. But then by the second semester, about halfway through, I was able to stay in the dorms. But by that time, I didn't really know anyone and didn't really have anyone to talk to. So I didn't really talk to many people. But then this year, being in the dorms since the beginning, there was a couple people that talked to me right away, but still there were some people that were a little shy because of the disability and things of that nature. But people like Ryan over there and Ro and whatnot, they reached out to me, and another buddy of mine came to me at lunch and sat at a table with me and just made me feel welcome. And initially, after my accident, a lot of my socialness, I would say, had gone away because a lot of the time I wouldn't eat lunch with everyone else because it was just awkward with sitting and stuff, or I wouldn't be able to go to parties with my friends because I can't get into houses with that other people can. But being here at U of M, being in the dorms, I've been able to meet people that help me get out of my comfort zone and get back to being the person I used to be. And I think a big part of that is the diversity on campus. But as with the campus being so diverse, you can always find people like you, but you can't always find people that are willing to reach out of their comfort zones or out of their cultures to reach out to someone that might be a little different than them. And I've been lucky enough to meet some people that have, and a lot of the diversity on campus, you can always find people like you. But I would encourage all of you to, if you see someone that's different than you, or see someone that might not be in the same culture as you, or to reach out, because every person has their story. Even there's always the black community, or the white community, or the Jewish community, or the Indian community. You can always find people, even within those communities, that have their own story, that are completely different from each other. And if you reach out, you can always find someone with a very interesting story. And for me, having a spinal cord injury, I can find someone. Every person with a spinal cord injury is very different. For me, I have spasms that might take me out of position as I'm riding along. Other people might not have spasms, but they might have other difficulties that they have to work on. And same with other disabilities. Every disability has its own challenges, but every person is still able to live, still able to go out. And a big thing that was kind of troubling at first when I was on campus was that I took, usually in math classes, when I took Calc 1 and 2, and I found myself in class in group settings having to prove my knowledge and prove that I'm capable of doing everything that everyone else can. I can't take notes like other people or type as fast. So a lot of what I do is mental, and I would find myself in groups having to go even further if we were doing a problem, do it in my head before they could type it in their calculator just to prove that I could do what we were doing. And it took that to show people that I was capable. And I would encourage people to be more accepting or almost uh, willing to learn what other people's challenges are and see how their mental is still there and see where they're at before judging, before making assumptions, because every person is different. Every person's might be good at one thing but not good at others, good at similar to you, good at things you're good at but not good at others, or the same way you are. And that's a big part of it. And that's what I like to help people realize, is that everyone has their challenges, but everyone's able to live and still do things. And a big thing I try to do is for people with disabilities, similar to mine or different to mine, is to show them that life is still going and get out there and try to be social, because I had the same challenges. And it's really helped being on campus and having these people around me to help me get to where I am now. And so I would encourage all of you to reach out to someone. If you're in the cafeteria and you see someone sitting by themselves, go to them, speak to them, find out what their story is, find out what their challenges are and what they are good at and what they're not, and see how they're doing. And you never know how it might change their lives, and for the good, and just get them to see that they can still live. Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have Callan, this lovely lady right here. She transferred here from a community college in Petoskey, and she's a first-generation college student. She is also one of 6 siblings and loves summers up north on the beach and bonfires. Let us stress the summers up north. So give it up for Callan.
Okay, hi, I'm Callan. I chose to speak tonight because it is my goal in life, and I want to be an advocate for breaking the negative stereotypes and stigmas that society holds of having a disability, specifically having a mental illness. I'm a junior here at the University of Michigan with a major in sociology with a CASC social work minor. And eventually I want to go to graduate school for interpersonal practice, working with specifically the community of mental health. Also, on a much larger scale, I want to create better facilities for people with mental disorders. Over 39% of homeless people have a diagnosed mental illness. Many of these people who are not receiving help end up committing crimes and end up in prison. There needs to be better facilities for people who can receive proper treatment instead of just being sent to prison, not receiving help, and then end up getting released from prison and recommitting crimes. There needs to be more treatment centers as opposed to just imprisoning people who need help but refuse such help. Mental health has always been something that has been very near and dear to my heart, as I have an uncle who is diagnosed schizophrenia for over 30 years now. Back when he was diagnosed, tragically, society knew very little about mental disorders, and as a result, he was heavily medicated, received electroshock treatments, and this essentially fried his brain, leaving him an unfunctional adult since the age of 20. And as a result, he has lived in mental hospitals since his diagnosis. From WebMD, schizophrenia is a serious brain disorder that distorts the way a person thinks, acts, expresses emotions, perceives reality, and relates to others. People with schizophrenia, the most chronic and disabling of the major mental illnesses, often have problems functioning in society, at work, at school, and in relationships. Schizophrenia can leave its sufferer frightened and withdrawn. It is a lifelong disease that cannot be cured, but it usually can be controlled with proper treatment. As I've previously stated, I am here to break stereotypes. Last year, I had to be withdrawn from school because I began having what they call auditory hallucinations, or hearing voices in my head that weren't really there. One night, out of nowhere, I began to hear these voices in my head, which I perceived these voices in my head to be God and the devil. As frightening as this may sound, this is actually a very common reaction that people have when they first start hearing voices. They perceive them to be a higher power communicating through them as a medium. I was paralyzed in bed with fear. That night, that date, will forever be ingrained into my head, and I can say without hesitation that that night was the worst night of my entire life. From that night on, I constantly heard these voices, all day and all night. They became commanding and telling me to do things of good moral character, and if I didn't listen, they told me that they were going to take me to hell with them. So I listened. I started going to church every day. I went to confession every week. I did whatever possible to please the voices to make them go away. Now, this seems unrealistic to me now, as I should have known there was something neurologically wrong with me, but that's a problem with mental illness. I perceive this all to be real. I was stuck in a state that they call psychoses, or being detached from reality, not being able to distinguish from what is real and what is not. Shortly following my auditory hallucinations, I began having what they call paranoid delusions. Delusions are having a strong belief about things that are false, despite the evidence that it is not true. I began thinking that the government was following me. I thought my entire house was bugged. I thought the CIA was listening to me through my phone, watching through my computer and TV, and my entire apartment complex was staked out with CIA agents watching my every move, and that the normal residents were just pretending to live there so that I would not notice. I would get on a bus and think that just a random guy was out to get me and a part of the government, and the voices would tell me to get off the bus, and I listened. I was stuck in this state of psychosis for 2 months, the worst 2 months of my entire life. I finally had decided that the only thing I could do was to commit suicide to make all of my troubles go away. I had no weapons, and I was too scared to take medications, as I had heard that you sometimes don't actually die, but instead become brain dead and become in a vegetative state for the rest of your life. At this point, I had stopped going to school. So I decided to stop eating and drinking and lied in my bed patiently and waited till my body died of lack of nutrients. A week of this went on until my mom called me and was questioning if I was okay because I had not been acting like myself. I am best friends with my mom. I literally tell her everything, but this I couldn't, out of fear that the government would hear me and know that I was onto them. For whatever reason, she asked me if I had been eating properly and when the last time I had eaten was. I couldn't lie to her. I burst out into tears and told her I would be on the next bus home. I live 4 hours away in Petoskey, Michigan, and she wanted to come pick me up and bring me home, but I couldn't wait that long. I packed a bag as quickly as I could, and I got on the next bus home. When I got home, I was hysterical, and my mom pressed to tell me what was wrong, but I was too fearful to even tell her because I still thought I was being followed. I asked her if we could go on a walk, and that's when I told her everything. We went immediately to the emergency room, and I weighed in at 95 pounds. I'm 5'8", and a healthy, stable weight for me is 125 pounds. I had lost 30 pounds in my efforts to commit suicide. When I came home, I was frail and weak and hadn't gotten a good night's sleep in months. At the hospital, they diagnosed me with psychoses not otherwise specified. I was immediately put on medications and began seeing a psychiatrist and a therapist weekly. But my symptoms still persisted, and in December, I was officially diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a combination of schizophrenia and depression. I suffer from this and severe anxiety disorder. I have paranoid schizophrenia, meaning my thinking, speech, and emotions remain fairly normal, but I suffer from hallucinations and the paranoid delusions. This year I came back to school, and trust me, it isn't easy. I still occasionally hallucinate and begin to feel paranoid and that I am still being watched again. But my therapist has given me coping skills to try and combat these symptoms. When I relapse and my symptoms keep coming back, they scare me, but I'm cognitively with it enough to know now that these symptoms are a result of my disorder and that they are not real. But I'm on 4 different medications, and they all cause drowsiness. I am constantly tired. I have to have a very regimented sleep schedule because missing sleep can cause me to trigger and have my symptoms come back. Stress is the #1 trigger for my relapse. It is incredibly hard being a student at the University of Michigan and not letting stress get to you. In December, I was hospitalized at U of M's hospital in the adult psychiatric ward because my symptoms had become so unmanageable and I needed serious medication adjustments. It's all a balance of having the right medication and getting proper therapy. Also, a crucial part to recovery is having a good daily habit, such as daily exercise and having a well-balanced diet full of vitamins. But I'm here to say that I am doing it, and I am not giving up. I am a role model patient. I certainly am not there yet, as my entire life will be a battle of trying to recover, but day by day, I become further away from the worst of it. My family's favorite quote is, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to be." And I live by this each and every day. I saw what my uncle went through, and I live in a generation now where people can have chronic diagnoses and still live totally normal lives. Not only will I finish school, but I'm going to be a social worker someday and help others who are just like me. I can share so much empathy for what they're going through because I've been there. And that's an identity of me that many doctors, nurses, psychiatrists, and other social workers cannot relate to me with. They don't know what it's like to have this illness, but I do. I have had my fair share of ups and downs, and unfortunately this past February, the voices became very strong again and started telling me to cut myself, and I did, and I had to go back to the hospital. I've been on weird medications that did weird things to my body. So, okay, this is totally personal, but frankly, my family and I made such light of it and all of the darkness of all that I was going through. They put me originally on a medication called Risperidol. This medicine increases the prolactin hormones in your body. This is the hormone released when a woman is breastfeeding. So lo and behold, a couple weeks after being on this medicine, my boobs started getting huge, engorged, and became very painful. We went to the doctors to see what was happening with my body, and they explained about the prolactin, etc. And just a few years later, I started lactating. Oh my God, at 22 years old. The joke all summer was, "Where's the baby?" I guess it wasn't so bad. The side effect can unfortunately happen to men as well. I just kind of got a free boob job out of it. My entire family is so supportive, and I could never have recovered without all of their love and support. I am from one of 6 siblings, and each and every one of my siblings is there for me at a drop of a hat. Jeremy, Haley, Andrew, Shay, and Jordan Ann, thank you for this. Aunt Mary, you have been a second mother to me in my entire life, and I couldn't be more appreciative of all of your support. And my mom, you are the best mom in the world. You are my rock, and I couldn't have gotten through this without you. My boyfriend, Jonathan, too, who is sitting with me here in the audience today, is my very best friend. He is so supportive of my illness and assures me that he is the only crazy one, crazy in love with me. And Diane, who is also here with me tonight. Thank you for being such an amazing person and friend. My only regret in our friendship is that I didn't meet you sooner. I'm so blessed to have so much love and support around me. Because of them, I can conquer this illness, and I refuse to let it define me. We all wear lime green bracelets, which is the color in support of mental illness in honor of my uncle and me. The University of Michigan has been so supportive. I see a wonderful, knowledgeable psychiatrist weekly through UHS and see the kindest, most understanding therapist weekly at CAPS. They have helped so much in my recovery. Also, my professors are beyond gracious in working with me throughout the semester so that I may be successful. When I am hospitalized or have drastic medication changes that cause me to be too tired to make class, I therefore miss a lot of school. But every professor that I've had here at the University of Michigan has been above and beyond understanding and works with me so that I can prosper in their class. The Office of Disabilities always makes sure, too, that my needs are met so that I can be successful in my classes. After I got out of the hospital in December, I had an outstanding hospital bill of over $11,000. After hearing my story and my inability to pay, as I'm a first-generation college student and putting myself through school financially, the Office of Financial Aid awarded me a scholarship to cover the entire hospital bill. I am so proud to be a Wolverine. Society has such a negative stereotype around disabilities, but schizophrenia especially. The media and Hollywood have done a good job at creating this image. I live in a small community up north, and everyone thinks that I am quote-unquote crazy now. And I need to break the stigma of people joking around saying things such as, well, just as long as you don't drop me up into a million little pieces. It's not funny, it's extremely offensive, and it is this kind of stereotype that I someday hope to break. Because look at me, I am not that image. And there are many other people suffering from disabilities that we know nothing about. The strongest people are not those who show strength in front of us, but those who win battles we know nothing about. We all have our own burdens to carry, and this is mine, but I choose to empower it and choose to share my story so that I may inspire others to keep going. I'm not giving up, and I use this diagnosis to motivate me to keep going. Thank you for listening and letting me share my story tonight.
Thank you, Callan. And so next up, we will have Allison Stroud. Allison is in her last year at the School of Public Policy. She loves cooking, traveling, her boyfriend, and her dog. So please welcome Allison.
Everyone can hear me. As you might could tell from my voice that I am deaf, so I have a bit of an accent. So I totally understand. If you don't understand me, then you have to raise your hand and just interrupt me at any time, and I will be more than happy to repeat anything that you want me to repeat. Everybody okay? Nod your head. Okay, good. First of all, I just want to say, I think everyone has done a great job with their speeches so far. And Callan, yeah, a hard act to follow. Mine's not going to be very eloquent like here, so I apologize. But thank you everybody for coming to listen to us. It's really important to get this information out so that everyone is really aware of what kinds of disabilities there are and the kinds of things that we all continue to make sure that the world is more inclusive of everybody from all different backgrounds. So I think I'll stop here and I'll start talking about me. So I was born deaf, and my parents discovered it quite early when I was about 6 months old, when they came to realize that I was not really responding to any sound. And sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, so. And I was diagnosed as profoundly deaf, and I have one hearing since then. So when you think of profoundly deaf, it's really just the next notch below total deafness. So just imagine yourself in a hollow hallway, and you see a ball drop, but you don't hear any sound, you don't hear any echoes. So just imagine that with a silence most of the time. So I will hearing, so I can hear, and I can read lips, but it's not going to be the same way as you can hear. So of course, that's why my phone sounds a little different. And before I move on with the rest of my speech, I want to know that oftentimes people like friends or parents panic a little bit before that their loved ones get their disabilities. I know that my parents did a little bit. This happened for several reasons, and among them, one is just generally they need more information about what the disabilities mean and a better understanding of how people who have disabilities can live fulfilling and happy lives. Another reason is that sometimes doctors really talk about disabilities in a very negative manner. So that definitely pushed people in an uncomfortable position, not understanding how they should go about with the disabilities that they have discovered. I need water. And this definitely helped with my parents. My parents told me that all of the doctors that they spoke to told them that I would not be able to communicate, succeed, play sports, or live a happy life. I would become an antisocial. So obviously you could see that I have proved them wrong, and I'm really fortunate that my parents did not listen to them and stubbornly made sure that I was going to live a life of a happy child and make sure that I knew that they were going to support me in every step of the way. And I know that many people with disabilities are working hard to make sure that their stereotypes and their identity are not confining them. They're more than just what their disability is. They're more than just their identity. And I know that sometimes people view disabilities in a negative manner, and it's really important to keep in mind that there's more than just having a disability. And now you can see that my disability is pretty much invisible. Most people are not going to know until I open my mouth and I tell them. Most of the time, people just think that I'm from another country, so I kind of go along with it and tell them that I'm from Argentina or Brazil. But eventually, they know I'm deaf. And I would like to share you this one interesting fact. In the United States, for every 5 people, there is one person who has a disability. So think about that. On any given day, you probably have walked by or interacted with someone who has a disability. Many times you might not have been aware, or they just don't want to talk about it. So of course, there is also that chance that the people who have those disabilities may not know it yet. And I like to point out that now the disability group is the fastest growing minority group in the country. And it is expected to grow at a much faster rate. And one part of that is because the Asian population is growing much quicker than it needs to be. So with that in mind, I need to stop rambling. I think that also people don't always realize that at any point in their life, most people will have a disability of some sort. And I'm going to share with you some of my experiences that I had growing up and around the University of Michigan campus. When people find out that I'm deaf, people just tend up, or they stumble a little bit because they're not sure what they're supposed to do, or they feel like they offended me, or they just don't know if I'm going to be able to communicate with them intelligently. I think at other times it's really just because they're just really uncomfortable speaking with someone who are not like them. And this comes from that lack of awareness and the lack of inclusion of their environment. They need to make sure that they have interaction with people of all different backgrounds, so that there's not so much discomfort there if they meet someone who has a disability. Everybody okay with me? Nod your head. Okay, good. And it's also important to understand that people who have disabilities are older people. They're just leading their lives a little differently from everyone else. And during a conversation with Shelby, yesterday, she said that disability is just one of the many points of diversity. And I agree with her. Do you want me to repeat? Oh, okay, thank you. Joby said that disability is one of the many points of diversity. Okay? And I agree, and I think disability is also an important part of the human experience. And furthermore, many people have told me that they do not know how they will live a life without hearing. They have often said that they felt bad for me, that I was missing out on a lot of things. I would not be able to listen to music, or talk on the phone, or listen to anything that's going on around me. And that is true. I do not really listen to music the way that I need to. I can only hear the beat and the rhythm, but I'm not going to be able to sing along. And if I do sing along, it's really off base or off, not really good at all. And I cannot identify the musical instrument. And I would love to, because I would like to hear what a violin or a piano really sounds like in a song. And I know that I'm not going to be able to identify any noise that I hear around me. I can only understand what I see. And that's how I absorb all of my information. That's how I learn in my classroom. That's how I learn every day. It's by looking. So, okay, let me find out where I am. While I know that people may think that I'm missing out, I just make sure that they know that I also can appreciate other things that they are not really appreciating. I'm very observant, and I can eavesdrop on people by reading their lips, just so you know, no talking about me. And I can enjoy my silence when I go to bed. I'm not going to hear anybody talking in their sleep or snoring in the middle of the night. I'm going to have a really good night's sleep every night. Think about that. And I think that's really all I have in this page. Sorry. I trying to remind everybody that even though I cannot hear, even though I'm not going to be able to do everything that I can do, I could still live a happy and fulfilling life. I could do things just a little bit differently than you guys are doing. And I need to make sure that I'm putting out, because a lot of people think that my experiences are going to be the same as another deaf person. It's really not true. It's not entirely representative of the entire deaf population. We do share some similar experiences and similar troubles, but there's still a variety of abilities, there's still a variety of differences that we all have. It just goes the same for people within a race, sexual orientation, religion. So we are not exactly the same. And when I came here, I came to New Farm as a freshman in 2003. So I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go at first, but I think the number one thing that brought me here was the services that they had available for people who have disabilities. And I also met Sue the first time I came here, so I think she was one of the very few people that helped me to feel more comfortable and makes me feel like, okay, I could do okay here. Because I'm from a very, very, very small town, and I grew up with a deaf program. When there were only maybe 7 students in my class most of the time, and I was the only girl. So you can imagine coming from there to a campus of 30,000 students, and I have the support of my teacher every day, knowing that everything was taken care of for me. I'm on my own. I need to make sure that I stay on top of things. If I don't do anything, I'm gonna fail everything. So I need to move on. Sorry. Can everybody understand me? Okay, my mouth is really dry. Okay. So while I okay, sorry. I noticed that there are a lot of public events and mass meetings and whatnot. I did not attend many of those just because I knew I would be entirely lost in translation, not really being able to follow what was going on, and there were too many people to try to ask for them for help. So the only way that I could attend some of the meetings was if I asked a friend to come with me, and I had to rely very, very heavily on my friend for any kind of translation or any interpretation of what was going on. Tap, 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 what's going on? 5 minutes later, tap, 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 what's going on now? Yeah, that was not really fun for my friend, but still very thankful for other friends who came to help. And now, I think because I'm probably older than most of you, and I've been a student for maybe 7 years now, I kind of have ideas on how University of Michigan can improve their awareness and inclusion for people who have disabilities, as well as maybe everyone else. So first of all, you can see the screen over here with my transcript on there. I think it's a great thing to have at our public events because even though there might be a few deaf people around, it's still going to be really useful because I could see some of you looking at there and not at me. So you can see how useful that is if you are not understanding the speaker or hearing anything going on. It's there. So that's one of the ways that I think people will feel more included at a public event. And another idea is how many people have taken classes that are related to disability here? Have you taken any classes at all related to disability? No hand? One hand there. Yay, me too. So there are no very, very few classes that are focusing on disability topics or have any relevant to disability. So that's one of the things that people need to get into. I think there should be at least several, a whole curriculum of disability-related classes so that there's a broader diversity of curriculum that people could follow. And there's no program here that is related to disability studies, so that needs to be done. Everybody okay? Fine. Okay. And I'm also a full-time employee. So I've been working here since 2008, and I have had quite a few experiences where people who I work with or people who work at UFM do not know or have no idea what to do with me as a deaf person. And for example, I had an appointment at one of the programs. They asked me if I wanted a sign language interpreter, and I said, no, thank you, because I really do not know sign language. I just need to make sure that the person that I'm speaking to knows that I can read lips and make sure that they're looking at me every time I talk to them. They still gave me a sign language interpreter anyway, so I had to politely told this kind lady who drove probably an hour from Flint to go home and take the day off. And I had to speak with the secretary and ask her why there was a sign language interpreter called for anyway. And she said that she still thought that I needed an interpreter even though I told her no. So that's one of the issues that I have to deal with. And another one was I cannot speak on the phone. So oftentimes I will ask someone to speak for me. And I ran over to an office and I needed to make a call to my boss to let him know that I was not going to be at the meeting on time. I tried to kindly explain to this person that I am deaf and that I am not able to speak on the phone and needed someone to call for me. She wasn't really believing me, even though I showed her my hearing aid. And it's pretty clear from my accent that I'm not really. If you put the two and two together, it's pretty clear that I'm going to need help. She wasn't willing to do it, and she said no. So from those experiences, I think it's really important that there needs to be some kind of a workshop that relates to disability that helps to train employees and inform students or anybody who is interested in training to have a series of workshops focusing on different topics of disability and just give the people information and spread awareness. I think that's a great idea. And I think that people not need their head. So So, thank you. I think I will explain to you. There's another idea that someone already talked about. Rohit, I definitely agree with you that there needs to be a preparation, a better preparation for students who are looking for jobs out of the real world, because I've had issues with job discrimination. When someone called me for a phone interview, I had to have my mom talk to them and tell them that I was not able to do a phone interview, but I can drive up to Ann Arbor and have a face-to-face conversation. They pretty much told my mom that they would call back, but they never did. And it was pretty clear after trying them a couple of times, they were not really interested in putting forth the effort to hire or work with a person who has a disability, especially in communicative barrier for me. And I think that's really all the ideas that I had, and I hope everyone agrees with me or is interested in talking to me about them. And I was when I was a little kid. I'm almost 30 now, so it's been a 30-year period of my experiences with a disability. I have definitely seen improvement in disability awareness and attitude towards people who have disabilities. And I am glad that there is still movement towards full inclusion and awareness of the disability community, especially on the campus. And I think I'm done here now. I just want to remind everyone that having a disability is a part of the human experience, and it's so important that people are aware that there is so much diversity out there, and disability is just a part of that. So let's embrace it and work towards full inclusion. Okay, I'm done. Sorry, thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Allison. Thank you. So next up, we have Ryan. And I do want to say a couple things about Ryan, because Ryan has been super helpful to us. He is the chair of the CSG Commission for Campus Accessibility and Disabilities Affairs, and they've been working with the SSD Student Advisory Board to better this campus. And so Ryan loves political advocacy, and his spirit president is FDR. So, welcome, Ryan.
Hi, everybody. Also, thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. It was truly amazing to hear all of your stories, and I think we're all better people because of all of the stories that you shared. I'm going to try and make this stay up. It's not really... All right, we're going to leave it there. Anyway, all right, I'm going to jump into this. Disabled, handicapped, slow, crippled, lame, retarded. These labels are used by our society to describe individuals who have a wide array of conditions. Notice, they are all negatively connotated as if there is something inherently wrong with being born with or acquiring a condition later in life that sets you apart from other people. When confronted with someone that is deemed by society as an other, many of us don't know what to do or say. Often, we turn a blind eye and pretend that we don't see them. The unknown is scary, and by acknowledging that differences amongst people exist, we are opening ourselves up to the realization that we too are different. So, hi. My name is Ryan Bartholomew, and I, like was said before, I am the chair of Central Student Government's Commission of Campus Accessibility and Disability Affairs. It's a mouthful, I know. We kind of just changed the name this year. So while I personally don't have a disability, I've had the privilege of meeting, working with, and befriending several students at this university who do. No matter, sorry, skipped a line there. Anyway, they are some of the nicest, most intelligent, and hardworking people that I know. No matter what the challenge, be it doing well in school, interviewing for jobs, or even just going about their daily routine, my friends meet it head on. They laugh in the face of discrimination and continue to persevere despite being counted out and disenfranchised by many. My friends are awe-inspiring. Just being around them makes you strive to be a better person and to never give up on your dreams and convictions. So I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about one of these people in particular, Again, this won't really stay up. Okay, so I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about one of these people in particular. When I transferred to U of M during the winter 2013 semester, I was placed into a random room with a vacancy in North Quad. Little did I know that my future roommate would change my life forever. Throughout my life, prior to attending the University of Michigan, I had known and volunteered to mentor kids with disabilities, but primarily autism. However, when I met my roommate for the first time, I didn't know exactly what to do or say. I had an other moment. I'd never known anyone confined to a wheelchair or in need of assistance to do many of the things that I took for granted, like going to the bathroom. I saw his condition before I saw him. My roommate and I quickly became good friends. The more time passed, the less and less I saw his condition, until finally one day I stopped seeing it altogether. Yes, he was still in a wheelchair. However, that wasn't the first thing that came to mind when I thought about him. He was just another one of my friends, plain and simple. Then one day, I relapsed. My friend finally opened up and told me about the nature of his condition. He has muscular dystrophy, a condition that causes his muscles to weaken and deteriorate over time. This condition is effectively a death sentence and has an average life expectancy of just 25 years old. After telling me this, I lost it. I broke down and cried. It's not fair, I thought to myself repeatedly. How could something like this happen to my friend? Bad things aren't supposed to happen to good people, and people don't get much better than him. The truth is, my friend doesn't let his condition define him or bring him down. He doesn't want anyone to feel badly for him or treat him differently. He knows what the future has in store for him, and that's anything he sets his mind to. Today, I'm proud to call him one of my best friends, and I look forward to seeing all of the amazing things that he is going to do in the future. So now I'd like to return to the narrative of the other. And I saw this narrative play out this way. I saw this narrative play out in the way that the university treated several of my friends living in North Quad last year. We experienced numerous unplanned fire alarms and a flood which displaced several people. During these emergency situations, my roommate and I discovered just how deplorable this university's evacuation protocols for students with mobility impairments were. We saw several elements of a broken system that put several U of M students, my friends, in the building at risk. First, the policies that DPS had in terms of evacuation of handicapped students were terrible. During one of the unplanned fire alarms, DPS told us to leave my roommate in our room, evacuate, and they would come and get him. He can't get out of bed on his own to open the door, so if we had followed their plan, DPS wouldn't have been able to open the door and successfully evacuate him. My roommate's caregiver decided to stay with him in the room and wait for DPS to show up, since leaving him wasn't an option, and carrying my roommate down 3 flights of stairs would have been challenging. But they never did. Secondly, the RAs in North Quad neglected handicapped students in these times of emergency as well. I sought out the RAs during the second unplanned fire alarm to help my friend. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I speak kind of fast. I kind of forgot that. Typing, right. Anyway, secondly, the RAs in North Quad neglected handicapped students in these times of emergency. I sought out the RAs during the second unplanned fire alarm to help my friend. They had all evacuated, and when I asked what the plan was to help handicapped students, they said that they knew that, quote, someone was in charge of that, but they didn't know whom. Also, they did not help or check on my roommate to make sure he was evacuated or just safe at all. I noticed all of this dysfunction and refused to sit idly by, knowing that one of my best friends and others could be harmed because of it. He and I drafted sensible, easy-to-enact solutions that could remedy this problem. We then set up a meeting with several staff members at the university to help us with this task. They were shocked at the current protocols, and they were more than happy to help us with reforming them. Since then, DPS has amended their protocols to enable students with mobility impairments to be quickly notified if the emergency is serious enough where they need to evacuate. If it's a false alarm, these students are notified and they can safely stay in their room. Also, a new RA training program was instituted at North Quad where there was a large focus on how to best assist students with a physical disability during these times of emergency. Due to my work with these protocols, I was nominated to be the chair of CSG's Commission of Campus Accessibility. With this commission, and with the help of all of its amazing members, we've been able to make noticeable changes on campus. We changed the commission's name to include Disability Affairs, which enables us to be advocates on behalf of every student with a disability here at U of M. We've helped institute new policies around snow removal so students with mobility impairments aren't late or have to miss class due to the weather. We've also held fundraiser events, provided SSD with an emergency fund that any student with a disability can draw on, and instituted a new policy which gives police officers the ability to immediately remove bikes being parked on handicap-accessible ramps when they receive a complaint. That's going to go into effect April 1st. So if you see a bike on a ramp, call a police officer. They'll know what to do. Other than all of these things, we are in the process of working to establish a need-based scholarship for any student with a disability through financial aid, reforming paratransit to make it more timely and efficient, and we are trying to set up testing centers for disabled students in other schools beyond LSA, since that's the only one that currently has one. This is all that we've done in 1 year, and we have no intention of stopping as we move into the 2014-2015 school year. Tonight, I'd like to leave all of you with 2 requests. First, if being an advocate to disabled students and making visible change on campus is something that you're interested in, join our commission. We're always looking for more like-minded, caring individuals, as all of you here today certainly are. Lastly, I'd like to return to the narrative of the other. I urge all of you to help society see that that's all it is, a narrative, an extremely dangerous one at that. It prevents us from looking beyond people's race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and physical or mental limitations, and getting to know them for whom they truly are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And for our last speaker of the night, I don't know what I'm saying, sorry. For the last speaker of the night, we have Lloyd Lloyd. And he is a first year in the School of Social Work, focusing on social policy. He enjoys writing poetry and making music, and of course, Michigan basketball. So please welcome Lloyd.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. I just enjoy saying that. Check 1 2. How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah. All right. Let me ask you. I'm gonna run a phrase by you guys. Let me see if you guys can finish this phrase. All right. Hail the conquering. Hail. Hail to Kaylee. Hail to Allison. Hail to Ro. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Hail to Ro. Hail to everyone who I'm sitting in this room looking at today. As Ryan, I believe his name is Ryan, spoke a moment ago, said the term disability, right? Disability is a limiting term. It's a term placed in the negative. It's a term that says people with these characteristics are assumed to be weaker than, assumed to be less than, assumed to be not as much as those who don't have these characteristics, right? But when I look at the people that spoke earlier tonight, when I look around this room, I don't see people who are less than. I'm blown away by the amount of strength, the amount of power, the amount of enthusiasm, the amount of character that I saw demonstrated, explained in depth by the words that were shared today. I'm blown away by the transparency and the bravery. I'm blown away by the courage that people demonstrated in their stories today. The ability to be vulnerable, the ability to be truthful, to be real, right? And so I salute all of you guys, and I salute myself too, because this term disability doesn't apply to us. It just doesn't. When I look around this room and I hear the stories that were shared, I don't think about weakness. I don't think about inferiority. I don't think about incompletion. I don't see people who are lacking anything. I see greatness. And I see victors. I see champions. Earlier today, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who also has a disability, and we talked about this guy named Christopher Reeves. How many are familiar with Christopher Reeves? Any of you guys ever seen the old Superman movies back in the 80s? Yeah, all right. So, as some of you who may not know, Christopher Reeves was the guy who was known as Superman. And then those who know Superman and know the story of Superman, the comic book hero, he is a superhuman, right? He has the ability to fly around the world and make time go backwards, and the ability to see through buildings, the ability to stop bullets, and superhuman, right? He's amazing. He's beyond the normal scale of humanity. And we spoke about how ironic it was that the person who portrayed Superman ended up catching a spinal cord injury and becoming paralyzed from, I believe, the chest down, maybe the neck down, right? And so there's this dichotomy in your mind of, here's this guy who portrayed a character who was superhuman, and now he has to have someone help him use the bathroom. It's an incongruency mentally. How do we reconcile these two images, these two realities, right? And then we talked about further about the legacy that Christopher Reeves left behind, right? This legacy of courage, this legacy of overcoming, this legacy of dealing with reality and taking it head on. And I don't want to deify or make a deity out of Christopher Reeves, because as a man with a disability and other folks in the room who have disabilities, we have great days and we have not that great days, right? Some days we're heroes, some days we're jerks. Let's be real, right? See, one of the things I don't like when people try and make a hero out of me is that it places me on this pedestal where there's so much pressure. I can't be real, right? I can't have a bad day. I can't be sad. I can't be angry, right? So I'm not a hero. And I don't mean it to shape anyone in this room as being heroes. What I'm saying is that you have a character, you have a nature, you have an ability, you have a gift, a vision, a perspective that many people in this society don't. You have a strength that comes from dealing with the situations that you've dealt with and overcoming them that many people in this society unfortunately don't. Me and my friend earlier talked about how our disabilities in many ways are actually gifts, right? Disabilities, air quotes, disabilities, in many ways are actually gifts because they allow us to see things in a different way. They allow us to experience life at a deeper level. Every person I know with a disability is a person who thinks a lot, that people have the ability to see things at levels and have an insight that many people who aren't disabled don't have. And that ability to see things, to process things, to think deeper comes from having to do so, right? Because I can't just reach up and turn off the light. Now, my disability has progressed. I have spinal muscular atrophy, a form of muscular dystrophy. And so, I'm an older guy, and so my disability has progressed at this point to where I can't do certain things I used to be able to do. But when I was younger, and my mom wasn't around, and I had to turn the light switch on because it was getting dark and I had to do something. I had to write a paper, do whatever. I had to figure out a way to get my hand up to that light switch. That light switch wasn't coming down in my hand. I had to get my hand to that light switch. And I had to figure out, how do I position my chair, right? How do I leverage my arm the right way? How do I crawl my fingers up this wall? And then it slides down, right when I get right to it. And so at that point, I have a decision. Do I just sit here in the dark? Or do I try again? And so I try again. But I angle my chair a little differently this time. Get a little more leverage. Lean my shoulder forward a little bit more. Start to climb my fingers up that wall once again. And the itsy bitsy fingers go climbing up the wall. And just when I get to the light switch, it slides down again. And so eventually, I decide I'm not going to lose. right? This light switch is not going to beat me, period. And so at that point, we reload, we refocus, and we go harder. And I remember breaking a sweat, turning on a light. I remember spending 10 minutes, 15 minutes trying to turn on a light, right? And some of you would say, man, that sucks. And at the time, yeah, it sucked, no doubt. But I look back on those moments. I look back on those experiences. And I treasure them. I treasure the ability that I had to reload. I treasure the ability I had to stay focused, to not give up, to keep pursuing. And I treasure the joy I had when that light came on. It's funny how things that many people just take for granted become this Olympic type event, you know, when you have a disability. And it's challenging, it's hard, but then when it gets accomplished, it gives you that sense of accomplishment. It gives you that sense of joy. I did something, right? And so how does all that translate to today? How does that translate to the University of Michigan? What's that mean right now in this room? My thought is this: when it comes to disability, I have a real simple, straightforward understanding of it. And that's that disability, air quotes, disability, is a part of the human experience. I'm 43 years old. Like I said, when I was younger, I could do things I can't do now. Many of you in this room are in your early 20s. You're invincible now, right? You can jog forever. You can do whatever. You can stay up till 8 in the morning and take a half-hour nap and go to class and be alert all day and do it again tomorrow. You guys are just superhuman, right? But unfortunately, we'll break some bad news to you. In about 10 years, I got any amens out there? You'll notice that might not be the case. In about 20 years, you'll definitely realize you're not going to be pulling too many all-nighters. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about, right? See, we all go through this kind of apex, right? This rise and fall. We start off as babies. As a baby, somebody has to change your diaper. Somebody has to wipe your nose. Somebody has to hold a baba to your mouth so you can eat or you will die, right? And then you get older. You get more independent. You start walking. Then you're running. Then you're reading. Then you're writing. Then you're riding your bike. Then you're driving, right? Then you're in college. Then you got a career and you're flying around the world. And then you start to get to the top. And then you start to go to the other side. And your abilities gradually, consistently, day by day, start to decline. And so you see people now walking around campus, maybe wearing glasses and with gray hair, maybe walking with a cane or a walker. Maybe they have a hearing aid. Maybe their glasses are pretty thick. Maybe have these little things at the bottom of their glasses, right? Bifocals, right? I guarantee 20 years ago, most of them didn't have those things, right? And so as you grow, your body changes. And so the question is, if disability, air quotes, disability, is a part of the human condition, then why are we calling it disability? Why are we calling it disability? Why are we viewing it as a weakness? Why are we viewing it as people who have these characteristics are lesser than, are weaker than, are incomplete, are needing of, right? Because the truth about it is it's just normal. We'll all experience it in some way, shape, or form if we live long enough, right? And so I don't mean to be Debbie Downer. I don't mean to rain on your parade, being young and vibrant, healthy. Be young, vibrant, and healthy. But understand that disability is just a part of our reality. Another thing I always talk about is, you know, when I was younger, a friend and I would always have these arguments about, I had a friend who was a big fan of Kobe, right? He was a little younger than me. I was a big fan of Jordan, right? Kobe and Jordan, Kobe Bryant and Jordan, Michael Jordan, right? And now it's LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, right? And so whenever we have these arguments, even my buddy Cam with it, we talk about Kobe and LeBron a lot. We have these arguments, I'm like, you know, we always have to put this qualifier on it, right? In their prime, right? Michael Jordan in his prime was way better than Kobe. Are you crazy? What are you saying? Right? Well, no. Kobe in his prime was way better than LeBron, man. What are you saying, right? Because there's this progression that happens. And so pick a given day, right? Today, LeBron will probably dominate Kobe Bryant. But if we say Kobe Bryant in his time, that's different, right? And I say all that just again to demonstrate and reiterate that we go through this apex, this incline and then decline throughout our existence. Lastly, when I think about disability, air quotes, disability, I think about the fact that as we look at the human spectrum of ability, where we're talking about cognitive ability or physical ability, right? Look at someone like LeBron James, right? 6'8", 40-inch vertical leap, crazy explosion when it comes to doing the athletic thing, right? And then you look at Lloyd Shelton, a guy who needs help scratching his nose. Can you push my glasses up, please? Right? And you say, well, LeBron's on one end. He's superhuman. He's amazing, right? And then there's Lloyd Shelton on the other end, who's air quotes disabled. What society does is it says, we look at this spectrum of ability, and we say between X and Y, that's normalcy, right? Between X and Y, that's normalcy. Between Joe Smith and Mike Thomas, whatever their ability levels are, that's normalcy. And if you're beyond one side of the parameter, you're superhuman, you're an amazing athlete, they pay you millions of dollars. If you're on the other side of the parameter, then you're disabled, right? You're weaker, you're less than. But in actuality, it's just one long continuum of ability, right? And so I think we need to try and shift how we view this spectrum and realize it's just a spectrum, that we all have gifts, that we all have talents, that we all have abilities, that we all have talent, and that we all need to be treated with value and with worth and with respect, because we're all people, and that's what really matters. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight. I hope you could take something away from the night, but please join all of our speakers for refreshments and treats at the end. Thank you.